And I guess what we've got about 40 minutes to talk about the Ethos RCT and yeah.
So I know that Mick has talked about it before, but it was maybe a year ago.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right, Megan. Yeah.
So I don't know how much you would have remembered, because it was quite a long time ago. But it might be useful to just sort of recap on what the trial is aiming to do.
I think that would be great, Megan. Just like to kind of outline what the trial is, and then I guess we can get into some conversation about how it's going. And I think when we had some email contact, you were saying it's really important not to say anything about results. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or about like the kind of the learning that's coming during the trial.
Yeah. So that's one of the kind of key features of a randomized control trial, which Ethos is. That the researchers remain, we call it blinded to the results as we go along, lest we inadvertently influence the data in any way. So we don't get to see what's happening without any of our outcome data. I mean, we're obviously very eager to know what's happening with our outcome data, but we remain blind to it. So there's various sort of bits of progress and updates that I can give you about how the trial's going, but unfortunately not with in relation to any of our results.
Yeah, well, I think I'm really pleased that we're getting to make contact with you and the work of the team, and it's great, and it'll be fantastic when the results do emerge.
Yeah,
maybe we'll get some more time together. So
that will be. We're looking to finish our data collection by the end of the summer. So once all this data has been entered and cleaned and validated, we should be looking to analyse it towards the end of this year, and then hopefully we'll be publishing the results at the beginning or middle of next year.
Yeah. So that's your kind of timeline, by maybe a year, 18 months, that kind of time you'll have some results. That sounds exciting. Yes.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Do you want me to recap on the design of the study?
Yes, but like, what is the purpose of the study? What's it about, really?
So Ethos stands for the effectiveness and cost effectiveness trial of humanistic counselling. And what we're looking at essentially is whether humanistic counselling with young people in secondary school is effective, and also whether it's good value for money. So it's an RCT design, a randomized control trial, which means that we assess young people. We're interested in young people between the ages of 13 and 16. We assess young people as to their eligibility to take part in the trial according to a predetermined criteria. And if they're eligible, they are randomly allocated to either receive school-based humanistic counselling or to not receive counselling, to carry on accessing their school pastoral care, usually their pastoral care system. And then we compare the two groups across a period of time. We look at how they're doing at 6 weeks, at 12 weeks, and at 24 weeks, along a range of different measures that we're interested in. So our primary outcome measure is
could you say that last bit again? Your primary outcome measure is?
The YP core.
YP core, yes.
So we're looking at psychological distress. We're also using something called the client service receipt inventory, which measures costs. So we'll be comparing different costs in the two groups in terms of what other services those two groups have accessed as they've been taking part in the study. And then we have a range of other outcomes. We're looking at levels of depression, self-esteem, well-being, young people also setting goals for themselves, and we're looking at how they get on in terms of attaining those personal goals they set themselves. And so we compare those two groups at each of those different time points to see whether or not there's a difference in having counselling or just.
That makes sense. So that I guess a lot of schools have pastoral resources in place, and maybe the study is going to show whether adding in a counselling service is going to make a difference, well, to the young people, very importantly, but also money's always tight in the education system. Like, is it cost effective?
That's right, exactly. So that's what we're hoping to do. One of the kind of challenges for us is that usually in pastoral care systems across schools, while they all have a pastoral care system, pastoral care services can vary quite a bit. And there might be reasons such as just in terms of tailoring the pastoral care to the particular culture. It might also be around resourcing. So the pastoral care system or systems that we're looking at quite varied. So when we come to do our analysis, we're going to have quite a varied system of the control system is quite varied. So we're trying to get a sense of what pastoral care looks like in schools, and that's one of the advantages to the study, that we're able to look at that kind of data. Really interesting data actually going on.
Well, that sounds really interesting, but also quite challenging that the control group is so varied, I guess, across schools. Yeah. No, so a real challenge to get the control group consistent, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, the way that we're going about kind of addressing that challenge is to get as much information as we can about the pastoral care for each school that they intend to, or they're able to provide to their students. And our school counselling coordinator, who has been instrumental in building up our relationships with us, Karen Connerty, will be talking to schools about their system of pastoral care. But what we're also doing is collecting data on the pastoral care that is accessed by every single one of our participants. So we will have a log of information for each of them. We'll be able to see what systems they've been accessing in addition to counselling, or because they don't have anything.
Right. So as you kind of build a database on what is available, where you can kind of adjust for those differences in the study. Yeah, that makes sense. And like, I guess counselling provision, even when it's in schools, can be really varied between schools, even within the same area. Is the RCT, is part of the purpose to kind of also look at best practice in terms of how to set up a counselling practice? Or?
So it's a really, really good question. In order that we can be sure that we are measuring what we think we're measuring, we developed the clinical practice manual for the trial. And so it's based on a set of competencies that was developed by Hill, Watt and Cooper. And it's essentially humanistic, but based on person-centered principles. But also through the feedback that Nick and his colleagues got in previous studies on school counselling, it seems that young people appreciated quite an active role from the counsellor. So it has a sort of active role orientating towards where they want to go. And we have a manual that was developed by Rebecca Kirkbride as part of the study. I believe that's actually about to be published, so it's in press, so it will be available to people. And so counsellors, though we have qualified counsellors, they are trained in our study protocols and they use the clinical practice manual. So we hope they're implementing the same sort of model of counselling.
So the counsellors are kind of offering the same style of counselling throughout the schools, yeah? Yeah.
So it sounds kind of like, if a manual makes it sound a bit mechanistic, and that's not the purpose. It's really to sort of pin down the principle, the modality, the model that we are looking at.
So the model is consistent with it, but it doesn't mean the counsellors are saying the exact same thing to all of their clients. Or I mean, I guess that just wouldn't be possible, would it? No.
What we also do is we measure the counsellor's adherence to the model, and we do that using something called the person-centered and experiential scale for psychotherapy, which was developed by Robert Elliott, and it was adapted to work with young people. And so we have a team of auditors who listen to short segments of counselling recordings, and they make objective assessments as to how adherent the counsellor is to the model. So we have data on that. And also counsellors and supervisors listen to segments of their recordings in their supervision sessions. So we're looking to really have a sort of strong sense of having a same model being delivered across the
yeah, like a real, it sounds like there's a lot of design that is about making the results maybe standardized isn't the right word, but somehow consistent. Yeah.
Yeah, I think standardized probably is quite a good word, actually. I think that is sort of kind of what you need to do when you're conducting an assessment. Like, you need to be quite transparent about what you're doing, and to really be confident in the effect that you're seeing, you need to be clear about certain aspects of your design. Like, you need to know exactly what the intervention is, and that's hence the manual and the adherence intervention part of the trial.
Yeah, so you can be confident about the numbers that come out, and I guess it's making me think about schools, education authorities really being able to trust the RCT, be confident in the results of the RCT, and then making quite big financial decisions, perhaps.
Yeah. So RCTs, they offer this sort of objective, because you can sort of stand back and have an objective view of what you're looking at, and that objective stance is certainly one that is favoured by policymakers and the kind of people that commission these therapies. So really, if we want our therapies to be commissioned, then we need to be demonstrating their effectiveness by coming up with this type of evidence.
Yeah, like the demonstrating the effectiveness in a way that's really gives a comparison with other kinds of studies, I guess, that have been quite successfully completed, maybe by more behaviourist modalities, CBT.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, this is a little bit of a tangent from working with children and young people, but perhaps some colleagues are worried that the kind of RCT model doesn't catch the effectiveness of humanistic styles of counselling. But it sounds like this study's got a lot of design also to catch or to be able to measure effectively humanistic counselling.
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate and some sympathy that people, I think, maybe get a bit put off in RCT design, because it sounds very mechanistic, and you have this, lots of quantitative data that's collected, and perhaps some of the kind of the sense of what we do as therapists, that kind of indefinable quality to what we do as therapists, that relational depth, perhaps isn't captured, or a sense that it's not fully captured, and in a way that qualitative data might do better justice to. But I think there are a number of advantages to conducting RCT, one of which is that it is considered the gold standard design for assessing effectiveness. And as we said, if we want our therapies to be commissioned, we need to start thinking that way. But also RCTs do offer this amazing opportunity to capture all kinds of data. So while we are looking at quantitative data, we also have quite a large qualitative part of the study. We're interviewing young people about their experiences of counselling. That's 20 interviews so far, and we're aiming to do 60 with young people. We're also interviewing parents and carers about their sense of the effect of counselling on family and of their young person. And we're also looking to interview school staff about perhaps the wider effects on the school, or what they've noticed changing. So actually, RCTs they don't have to be an either or. You can actually capture some qualitative data as well. There's opportunities for that too.
Oh, that sounds like a real exciting opportunity to have that qualitative data, like the real experience of the clients alongside the numbers, I guess, which is catching a different part of the experience, but to really hear from the clients and other stakeholders in that process too, or like parents and...
Yeah, exactly. So there's a voice there for parents and also the school staff as well, to understand the wider effects of potentially just the experience of counselling, but perhaps what other people have noticed might change, or where there may be benefits.
Yeah, that makes sense. It sounds so interesting, and it must be hard to I guess I'm sure it's built like this, but to leave the data alone, I guess, until the end of the study must be so desperate to hear, or excited to hear.
Yeah, we really are. We actually had some really good news today, which is that we are hoping to recruit 306 young people in the study, and we reached 301. I think somewhere around this afternoon, Karen Comity just updated us on an ops group call, an operational group call, and we're really pleased because it means they're just 5 participants away from our target.
So what's your target again? Can you say that? 336.
306.
And you've got 301.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we're really pleased. And there's also lots of results, but some fantastic things that in terms of our progress. So we have a really good research completion rate in terms of our data collection. It's about 98% completion of our measures at the different time points.
So is that young people completing the questionnaires? Yeah, like most people are doing it. Yeah.
Most people are doing it. And we have about an 85% attendance at counselling sessions, which might suggest that young people are engaging well with it. And we have quite a low dropout rate in the study. It's only about 7.5%. So there's some stats that we are aware of and we're really pleased with.
Yeah, like those stats sound great, especially, well, there can be a chaos around working with young people too, maybe a chaotic client group at times. So to know that the young people are turning up, they want to have the sessions, they want to complete the questionnaires also, I guess they're aware that that's contributing to study about counselling. They sound like great results.
Yeah, I mean, actually, at the beginning of the study, one of the things that Karen and I chose to do was to conduct many of the assessments ourselves. So we had, at the very beginning of our data collection, we had this period of time where we did an internal quality check of our processes. So we started with 3 schools. We now have 18 schools involved. By the way, we started with 3 schools, and Karen and I did a few of quite a lot of the assessments. We wanted to get a sense of the process and to look at how we might improve our process. And I think we were both really encouraged that so many of the young people we met were really keen to take part in the study and to be involved in counselling, which feels like a really positive thing. Particularly, I think when maybe there's been a bit of a history of some stigma around counselling and well-being. So that was like a real plus point as well.
Yeah, so you right from the beginning then, you're seeing that in the young people that are experiencing the counselling there. They want to be involved in the study. Yeah. And well, maybe this isn't an appropriate question, so you can tell me if this one has to wait, but almost like it sounds like young people wanting to say, yeah, more people could benefit from this. Like they're really enthusiastic about how helpful counselling is, but maybe that's part of the results that will come out.
Yeah, I mean, that would be an interesting thing to look at, the way that the young people are talking about counselling, they would say about counselling. It's a really great question, but we don't know yet what they are.
Yeah, okay.
We just have these indicators that,
yeah, I guess you've got kind of anecdotal evidence in terms of your own experience, but yeah, you must have hundreds of questions like that, Megan, that you'd love to know, but have to wait till all the data is in.
Yeah, I think we're being amazingly patient because we really just want to know what's happening.
Yes.
So we just have to carry on being patient about it.
Yeah.
It's not too long to go.
Yeah, like making great progress, and especially in the recruitment. Congratulations on making it through or over 300 participants.
Yeah, it's been a huge piece of work. It's a huge effort. The schools have just been amazing to work with. We're going to schools where they don't have any experience conducting research, and they have to take on a huge amount in terms of understanding our processes, understanding aspects of conducting a research project that as researchers we kind of take for granted, and they kind of have to quickly get on board with. And there's a lot of paperwork, and so it's been fantastic that they've stuck with us over this fairly long period of time. And also Karen, who is leading all the liaison and coordination of the school, and all of our researchers who are in the field have done just an incredible job of making it happen. So lots to be proud of, but it has been a huge endeavour, and there's been a lot of challenges relating to conducting a study of the size and of the design. And I know that Nick and I and others are looking forward to also being able to share that with the research community and counselling community. Other people could benefit from our learning, and where we've tripped up and hurdles that faced along the way too.
Oh, could you just say that last bit again, Megan? Sorry.
I was just saying that Nick and I and other people in the team are really keen to share our learning.
Yes.
And the kind of hurdles we faced along the way, because I think that the wider research and the counselling community would benefit from the learning that we gained basically along the way.
Like there's going to be learning from the actual research process that's going to help other research projects, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. Quite a lot of learning. There's been a lot of challenges at
Yeah, and I mean, I know it's early days, but I wonder if there's any learning from the process that you might share just now, or anything that you would like to share with the community, the therapists, the research community.
Yeah,
it's okay to say just now, or
I think in terms of, I could certainly speak to the learning we've gained, people who are interested in the research side of it. First of all, I'd say that the scale of the project and the design of the project is just enormous. So there's a huge amount of coordination involved, which can't be underestimated, really. We now have Karen coordinating this. That's really a full-time job. We've got, I would say, probably close to 100, if not more than 100 people, one way or another, working on the trial. Which is a huge number of people.
In the whole project? Yeah.
So we have a counsellor in every school. We have 18 counsellors who are working really hard to make this work. And in each school, we have somebody who's a member of school staff, as I said, they're not a researcher, coordinating things at their end. We have supervisors. We have our trial management group, which consists of all our collaborators. We have a group of auditors who are doing the adherence monitoring. We have our assessors and testers who are out in the field. We've got a clinical trials unit managing our quantitative data. We have a trial steering committee, data monitoring ethics committee. There's lots of different subgroups, so there's just a huge number of people that you need to manage, and you need to ensure communication. It sounds like an obvious thing, but that's working with you. So there's a lot of recruitment, there's a lot of training, there's a lot of money spent on staff resourcing. I mean, that's the first big challenge to conducting an RCT of this size, and you're doing a pretty powered RCT.
Well, a team of 100 people, I mean, that's a serious company, isn't it? Yeah.
I actually think, I have said this, that it's actually a bit like running a business. It has that kind of quality to it, because there's just so much going on, and so many people. There's all sorts of things around HR and employing people and that recruitment training stuff. So it is really a business, except we're not making any money.
So it sounds like you're spending plenty of money, but it's not about making money. Yeah.
I mean, we had a large grant from the ESRC, and then we had financial support from the University of Roehampton and also the ACT. It's the initial grant, £835,000, like a huge amount. It is a big one. But actually, when you're running a study like this, it really gets spent very, very quickly.
And like, if colleagues were thinking about this kind of size of study in terms of the project management, like that's part of the learning, that there needs to be a lot of resources and a lot of thinking around actually project managing something this size.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the management and the administration as well, that side of things, is probably underestimated. It's got, it's not just an academic project. That's not an academic project, but there's something really important about having people who are used to managing large-scale projects as well as also being academics. You know, that there's that sort of business side. I think when it do like this.
Yeah, that's a tricky mix, isn't it? You've got something that feels like a business in terms of size and scale, but it's an academic project, and of course, as counsellors and psychotherapists, can be a nightmare to manage as well. So you put like lots of us kind of people in the mix. I mean, have you kind of learned anything about how you take care of this many people in this bigger process? Like, have you got something in place to kind of help everyone feel like part of the team, or yeah?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. My hope is that people do feel that they are part of a team. There hasn't, I mean, within their teams, I think, you know, we have certain people in place who oversee these different teams. So Karen, for example, really now oversees the assessors and professors in the field, and Peter Pierce from the National Institute is the clinical lead, so he oversees the supervisors and the counsellors. And we have a couple of people at the ACT, Charlie Jackson and Gemma, who are involved in looking after our auditors. So there's sort of delegation involved. So far, all those different teams haven't mixed up too much, but it would be really lovely to bring them all together. Certainly something we want to do. When we come to do a dissemination conference, I hope that people will come along and see what how their hard work is being paid off.
That sounds like that would be so nice for everybody to come together at the end to experience the size of the team and see what's been created. Yeah. But it's a challenge, I guess, like the communication and the caring for such a large body of people. Yeah. I wonder if there's anything else that maybe you've been surprised by in the process. There's been a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, as I said, I think the challenges are numerous. So another kind of an interesting challenge, that is an ongoing challenge for us, has been in terms of developing something called an adverse event protocol.
Oh, so, could you say the name of the protocol again, please?
Adverse event protocol, which is a sort of it's a mandatory part of any protocol for a control trial of a pharmacological intervention. But there's sort of scant literature in the psychotherapy and counselling field on collecting data about basically when things go wrong and adverse events happen as a result of counselling. It's quite an important thing to look at, because as well as looking at whether or not our intervention is effective and beneficial, we also need to know if it's associated with harm, and we also need to know, for an ethical point of view, if the trial itself is a safe trial to conduct. So we need to collect data as we go along about any adverse events that might happen for young people study. And a couple of reasons why that's challenging is because, first of all, how do you define what an adverse event is in a trial like this? We put together a list of adverse events that were really rooted in our more of our clinical experience than what we could find in the literature, because there wasn't much literature on this. So they sort of range from things like running away from home to self-harm if it's not a presenting issue, right through to suicidal attempts. But it's quite difficult to come up with that list. One paper I did read suggested that crying in therapy might be considered an adverse event. Now, as a therapist, I'm thinking like, that's a mad idea, but I imagine for non-therapists or people who want to find therapy, that might be an adverse event.
As a therapist, we'd be thinking, oh, if the client is upset, like we're making some progress, perhaps. But yes,
you might have a completely different frame on what crying in therapy might be. So that was one of the first challenges. And then the second thing is that what you need to try and do when you're looking at adverse events in a trial like this is to try and ascertain if it's related to being in the trial, because that gives you important information about whether this trial is a safe project to be running. And actually ascertaining a kind of causal relationship been an adverse event and taking part in the trial or the counselling is really quite hard. We're thinking now we may need to collect more data around that if ever we did something similar project. But it's hard for counsellors, say, to be able to report adverse events in their clients and then have to think about whether or not it was related to the counselling. That's quite a big ask. And at the moment, Nick, who's the chief investigator, reviews all the adverse events and reviews the assessment of legality. But he obviously has a vested interest in the trial. So he also is coming from a place where it's pretty difficult to make that assessment in a really objective way. So it might mean that actually what we needed all along is a more independent review process.
For someone else to look at the data and see, is this an adverse event? And it makes sense what you're saying, to ask a colleague to kind of name something that they've not done so well, perhaps, or that hasn't gone so well. Yeah, especially when everybody wants the trial to produce good results.
Exactly. But it is quite an important part of the study, because it does ethically. It helps us monitor things going wrong or any harm being caused, whether or not that's related to the trial or whether it's just happening in our participants, but it will happen anyway because of what they're going through. It's important that we are kept abreast of that kind of information as we go along. But it is challenging, as a therapist, to think about, when things go wrong and whether or not I have a part to play in that, or as a researcher, when things are going wrong because of the studies that I'm trying to do. It's been a very challenging protocol to develop and then to implement. So there's been a lot of learning around that, and I know that in our wanting to share our experiences with running this study, I'm really keen to share our experiences of trying to find a way of managing and monitoring adverse events.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating and so valuable for the research community in the field of counselling and psychotherapy, to have some data and some ideas about how to take care of that. It's also making me wonder whether, like, as a therapist, like the work that you've done already or what you've seen, like, has it adjusted your work in any way or had an impact on kind of how you think about your client work, or is it too early for that, perhaps?
That's a really interesting question. I haven't sort of articulated to myself yet. I think I've got a growing interest in this area in terms of how we think about things going wrong for people who are in therapy. That's not to say it's always attributable to therapy, but how we think about that and how we contextualize that, and how we how we understand it and we start to pick it apart. I think it's probably too soon to say anything about in terms of the data that we have, and in terms of its impact on my work just yet. But I think that's a fascinating question that I'll definitely be coming back to when I start to maybe start
disseminating. Like it's early days for all that in terms of numbers and outcomes and
I mean, that's actually sort of linked to another point I was going to make, that challenge around it, is that the number of adverse events that we have had happening in the study are not enough to make any kind of meaningful statistical analysis possible. So there's added issue around how you decide when how many events are too many adverse events when you can't do that statistically. So I don't know what we'll end up with in terms of numbers and what we'll be able to use, but I think it's a really interesting, very rich data.
I think it feels like such an interesting conversation, because I know it's easy for me to inhabit a space where, like, counselling is always helpful. We create the conditions for the client, and that's always going to be helpful. But to have something in mind around, like what might we be doing that's unhelpful, I guess, like to have our eye on that. And It's also nice to hear that it's hard to get enough data to be statistically relevant. Like this, there's so little there.
Yeah. I mean, I think the other thing to add is that we're not just looking at residents in counselling, because this is part of the research project. So we're also looking at residents that may or may not be related to taking part in the research project. So I guess there's a sort of wider implication, not just for us as therapists, but as researchers, thinking about what it means to take part in a research project. So what is the effect on a research participant having had an assessment, say? Is there a knock-on effect? In those sorts of terms, that makes sense too. A research participant who doesn't necessarily receive the intervention, but they have had a meeting, an assessment. What happens next?
Yeah, like that sounds important too, in terms of maybe helping us as practitioners to be not so scared about research, and maybe even get excited about participating in projects, and excited about the impact on our clients too. Like there might be a helpful impact for the client work.
Yeah, because I think ultimately it should just help us think more about how we manage all of that as well, not just about things go wrong, but actually things are inevitably going to go wrong. So how do we manage that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not everything. There's nothing goes wrong, but how do we take care of that and have which is often the work in therapy, isn't it? When there's a rupture or like this, it can be so rich when we bump into something with our clients. So more. That'd be so interesting to get the learning from that too. Megan, I'm just watching the time, and we've got a couple of more minutes left, but I want to be careful with your time, because I can see, I guess, you have a very busy, you're squeezing a lot into your week already with having this project. Was there anything else you might want to say to us before we kind of conclude the discussion, or was that most of the things you wanted to let the colleagues know?
Probably most of it. I mean, I guess the only last thing that maybe I might say is something about what we're hoping, our hopes for the project really on completion, because I think it's a trial that potentially has the potential to really influence potentially policy, and will be interesting and important for a range of stakeholders. So, policymakers, statutory bodies for child welfare, and parents and carers, and ultimately make a difference to young people, which I think is really at the heart of what we're trying to do. So, that's our hope for the trial.
Yeah. Yes, well, and that is what sounds so exciting, to have a real impact on policy and choices around budgets in order to improve mental health and well-being for young people. I mean, that, like, in a way, I guess that's what keeps your energy up, and all the colleagues in the project, like, in what must be an exhausting process.
It is, and it's a long process. 3 years in total. It's slightly over 3 years, and we're in the second. No, we're coming up for our last final year now. So it's it's a long process, and it is pretty exhausting. I won't lie, but it does. It's such an important project.
Yeah, and I remember when I spoke to Mick last year, like there was still some roles that needed to be filled, and so there was a kind of a call to colleagues if they were available. I mean, is there anything you like that colleagues could contribute, that you'd like to ask, or maybe it's kind of emotional support, like if colleagues know someone in the trial, like help them keep going and making it to the end.
Great. So if you meet any Ethos personnel while you're out on the streets, if you could just stay enthusiastic to the end of the trial, that would be nice. Including me. If you see me on the streets and you feel like I need to go there. We're not really recruiting so much anymore, because we're coming towards the end of recruitment for our participants. We will be continuing to collect data until the end of July, and so we are keeping our recruitment of researchers testers open. So we may need some more testers. But as we're coming to the end of that process now, we're starting to wind down.
Yeah, yeah. So there might be, like, if colleagues keep their ears open, if there is some more work to be done in terms of the statistics, yeah, it'd be great. And it sounds like if colleagues see you on the street or anyone else in the Ethos project, like, yeah, let's bring our enthusiasm to that conversation. Some moral support.
Some moral support. Yes.
Great. Well, Megan, thank you so much for taking some time out to come and have a conversation with me this afternoon. I'm sure the colleagues at Online Events have been really pleased to hear about the trial, how well it's going, and we'll be excited to get the results. Yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been great to talk to you. I look forward to telling you all about, well, Rick and I and the team telling you all about the results, I think.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, really look forward to having that conversation. I can imagine you might need to have a little holiday or something first at the end of the project, and then a well-deserved rest sometime next year, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. Till the next time we get a chance to have a conversation, say bye for now. Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.